participants. Let me just share my screen. Can you see the screen? Thank you so much. So my name is Kosjenka Petek. I'm an autistic person, an autistic teacher. And I'm here on behalf of Ask Initiative for Autism, Neurodivergent People and Self-Advocacy. And together with me is Jasmina. Today we want to present our survey which dealt with inclusion of autistic pupils without intellectual disabilities in Croatia's mainstream schools. So to set the scene, so the first thing we want to mention for those participants who are not autistic, we are going to use identity first language, so autistic person, disabled student, or neurodivergent student. For the autistic participants, the official terms you see in the quote marks are the one which are given in our GEM Croatia report and are the official terms find throughout Eurydice or other official documents. You might find some of these offensive. I'm so sorry, but we decided to go with the official terms because I believe we have many non-autistic participants from Croatia present. Also, we decided to use the term primary education instead of basic education, which again is the term found across EU reports. We believe that primary education is more understandable term to all the participants nationwide. So to set the scene, we come from Croatia. If you've never been here, Croatia is a small country in the Adriatic region. Our neighboring countries are Italy, Slovenia, Hungary. Do come to visit us, especially over the summer break. The autistic community in Croatia has started to emerge recently. We got the official Adult Autism Diagnosis Center. We have two centers. We got them some 2 years ago, and the autistic community started emerging and connecting only 3 years ago. We are a young community, a young country, young democracy. First of all, I want to give a brief overview of primary education organization in Croatia because it is somewhat different, especially from the States and maybe some other countries. As you can see from this map here, we follow single structure model for primary and lower secondary education. Our primary educational system is compulsory. Children enter our primary educational system at the age of 6 or 7 and leave school at the age of 15. Secondary education isn't obligatory, it isn't compulsory. Unfortunately, home education is illegal in Croatia. That's very important to note when we discuss the results of our survey and further steps that we need to take, that we feel that we need to take. There is something called education at home, which is only allowed by the top authority, that being the Ministry of Education, only for those children with higher needs, higher mobility challenges. So those children who can't enter or have some health challenges to stay at school itself. When we talk about lower primary grades, 1 to 4 ages up until 10, they are taught by one teacher per class, and that teacher teaches every subject, with the exception of foreign languages and religious education. We have a combination of academic subjects and some educational subjects, and the students usually stay in one classroom all the time, unlike when our children enter upper grades of primary, when they are taught by different teachers for each subject. They expand their academic curriculum with more STEM subjects, and the students don't have one classroom, they move around the school, and this is the target. These were the target participants for our study. Now, Global Education Monitoring Report for 2021 for Croatia, which explores inclusion in education. Our stakeholders say that this single structure education requires no transition from lower grades of primary to the upper grades of primary, and Jasmina will talk about some challenges there that are still existent, and that single structure ensures the acquisition of broad general education, and it actually provides a possibility for further education and equal educational opportunities. They call this single structure education inclusive, and they mention, as you can see in the quote itself, that inclusiveness prevents education-based discrimination and social marginalization, which is not in line with autistic parents and non-autistic parents' findings, perspectives, and lived experience. What does SEN provision within the mainstream education look like? There are two target groups that are entitled to SEN provision. Quotes, they are children with developmental disabilities and learning difficulties, and any particularly gifted child. They are awarded SEN provision. Where does it happen? So Croatia has Croatia has two types of schools for children that are disabled. They can enter mainstream primary schools, or if they experience higher health and social challenges and need higher supports, they enter special schools. So Croatia still has special schools for pupils with extensive developmental difficulties. Other children who enter mainstream primary schools, they either attend regular classes, special unit classes, or class units for disabled pupils, where we find children with Down syndrome or autistic pupils with mild or moderate intellectual disabilities. Now, in special unit classes are made for those pupils with diagnosed behavioral disorders. And sometimes autistic pupils end up in those classes without proper support, because we all know that autism is not a behavioral disorder. Who decides on what type of primary education school the child enters and what type of program the autistic child especially enters? These are the school experts together with the official local authority. School experts, upon testing the child, decide which type of program is appropriate, for the autistic child. It can be either a mainstream program with IEP, or adjusted mainstream program where we need to apply IEP and extra accommodations. And that's the first step that we as autistic community and as autistic parents of autistic children have noticed, that our speaking autistic children without intellectual disabilities are failed by the system, because the school experts often lack the important expert which knows how autistic children learn and the actual supports and IEP needs they actually have. What we have noticed, and we are talking about our experiences now, and why we approached Professor Stošić to do the nationwide research, is that when a child enters the mainstream program, speaking autistic pupil with no intellectual disability, they immediately get IEP. Some of these students, because they do come with the diagnosis of autism, they are pushed into adjusted mainstream program immediately upon contacting their local school, without even having the teacher see the child, try to teach the child. So the diagnosis of autism is enough to strip down the curriculum for speaking autistic pupils with no ID. Now, what happens is that this individualization, IEP, is often not followed. IEP refers to individualization in content delivery by the teacher, methods of teaching, and also assessment of autistic pupils. Now, if these three are not being followed, what we as parents of autistic children have noticed is that our children experience educational neglect. It takes parents about 2 or 3 years to understand that our children end up being illiterate, end up lacking basic knowledge, academic achievement, which is something that leads the school expert team and the teacher to suggesting transferring autistic child into adjusted mainstream program or to special unit class because they can't follow the mainstream program. Now, if the parents don't become heavily involved in the content delivery itself at home, the thing that can happen to speaking autistic pupils with no intellectual disability is that their curriculum is further stripped down and they can end up in special programs for independent life and work, which means no further academic achievement, at least not the ones that could help them to bounce back into the mainstream program and continue their secondary or tertiary education. That happens to speaking autistic pupils with no intellectual disability, to our personal experiences and to our knowledge. Now, what happens to non-speaking autistic pupils or semi-speaking autistic pupils with no intellectual disability? And I have to stress this over and over again because I've seen that we have many Croatian teachers here or Croatian experts. What happens to non-speaking autistic pupils is that when they enter the mainstream classes, they immediately have adjusted mainstream program. But unfortunately, because the lack of expert guidance and incomplete school teams and school expert teams, the teachers can't cater to their needs. And again, they are being educationally neglected. And unfortunately, when we come to upper grades of primary, they more than often end up in special programs for independent life and work, which we as parents, as autistic initiative, consider to be a great violation of their human rights and the rights to quality education. So this happening here to both speaking and non-speaking autistic pupils without intellectual disability within the mainstream regular school was described by one child that the school system is only addressing their issues and their problems connected to education of autistic pupils. So they are not equipped, they are not knowledgeable how to address the education of autistic pupils. They have a limited legal framework and protocols. And instead of receiving education and instead of addressing autistic pupils' problems, challenges, and issues with their education, they are simply addressing their own systematic issues. So our children end up their primary school years being illiterate, not educated, with their human rights violated. What led to our research, first of all, was this book, I hope you can see it, by Dr. Rebecca Wood, which changed our parent perspectives on inclusive education, because before that we were told that Croatia has inclusive education, and we were actually as parents pushing for our children to be enrolled into regular primary schools, into the mainstream program, because Croatia doesn't offer special educational needs schools for pupils, for disabled pupils without intellectual disabilities. So there are no other places in our country where autistic students without intellectual disability can enter the regular mainstream program with IEP other than the state schools. So this book changed our outlook on what inclusive education means for us as parents and for our children. And the other thing is, of course, strengthening of the autistic community in Croatia, exchanging all these experiences, which led us to approaching Professor Stošić, Jasmina, and asking her to help us raise these issues. But first, of course, we needed data, and that's how we came to this research, or its first step. So, Jasmina.
Okay, thank you, Kosjenka. Okay, I will go a little faster through this data collection process and methodology to leave space for the final messages, which I think they are most important from the autistic pupils. So within our teaching and clinical center, we had the same insights and observations as Kosjenka had. We have services that include diagnostic assessment, support to parents and children, and we also support schools and teachers and school staff in including autistic pupils in mainstream school. These are some of our observations. I will not go much into detail, but I would just like to emphasize that we are very worried that we see a lot of problems that autistic pupils are facing, and that we see more high anxiety in much younger age in children, and the signs of autistic burnout in children. And what happens is that they are masking at school, trying to fit in, and then they have meltdowns at home or meltdowns in school, but they don't, teachers don't understand what's happening and the process that they are going through, and what they can't support them properly. So often those behaviors are considered problem behaviors, challenging behaviors, and very often these are part of the reasons that the children are excluded from a specific program. Also, I want to say that quality, we have observed that the quality of support for each child depends, a lot of it depends on individual teacher, and we have less problems in the grades 1 to 4 because there is one teacher, and if that teacher has capacities, and what we have found out that the characteristics that are important are willingness to understand and get to know a child and be open and being interested to learn more than actual knowledge. But teachers also have a lot of content and learning outcomes that have to cover, and less resources. So it is also sometimes very hard to meet the needs of autistic pupils in these kinds of resources and schools. Also, what's striking is the lack of knowledge on autism and best teaching practices, and there is no transition planning. So we have transitions from preschool to school to primary, and then from primary to upper, from first to fourth grade, and then to upper grades, when a teacher that was teaching a child for 4 years doesn't even sit down on a meeting with the other teachers that will receive a child, just to convey what that child needs and to get to know the child better. So I will go faster. We have a very little research on inclusion in Croatia considering autistic pupils. So Kosjenka initiated our collaboration, and our, I would say, big aim is to explore the quality of education for autistic pupils in mainstream schools, and this is just the small first step that we took. So we were interested in experiences and perspectives of autistic children and their parents on their relationship with peers, with teachers, and also we wanted to hear their suggestions on what to improve and what needs to be changed. So this is the first attempt of participatory research in Croatia. we are just the beginners, and we are still learning how to do it properly. So what I wanted to say, we decided on a qualitative study first that would inform our further steps. And although this study has some limitations, like there were only highly educated parents that were included, the group of participants was very small, and also there were different ways of conducting interviews. I will tell you more about that, but still there are valuable insights to inform our future steps. So we cooperated together on defining our areas of interest, on defining our aims. Also, during data collection, an autistic child and autistic parent, Kosjenka, joined us in developing semi-structured interview. And so parents, autistic parents and non-autistic parents have answered our questions via using audio recording or using or just wrote answers to the questions, but also they were the ones that interviewed their children. So we then conducted a thematic analysis, which first started with a student, ERF student and myself, and then was finished with members from the community. And also we have decided to disseminate results together. So participants of the study were 5 autistic children and 6 parents, of which 3 were autistic and 3 non-autistic. And there are themes that emerged regarding peers. So the first one is differences in social communication, where parents and children mentioned that their interests were crucial in making friends, but also the lack of shared interests was the reason that some children didn't have friends in school, in their classes. Children stated they are being misunderstood by other peers, and they also talk about their difficulties with communication in group. Unfortunately, 4 or 5 children included in this research were abused in some way by their peers. They were mocked because of their scheming behaviors. They experienced avoidance and teasing by peers. And also what parents mentioned, that the thing that contributes to relationship with peers is the lack of education on diversity of our peers. And I think this quote describes that the best. This autistic mother says, there is no systematic, methodically structured and didactically supported education on diversity. Teachers are not educated, so they can't pass on insights on the value of coexistence with differences. Then other things that helped in relationship with peers is the awareness of diagnosis and differences. 3 of 5 mothers and children said that when they finally got the diagnosis and that they introduced the diagnosis to peers and that their children were more understood and their behavior was less misinterpreted, and so they also had understanding from other parents. So one mother said, just understanding that his differences are not rudeness but honesty. He's unique, persistent, and special. As his peers get older, they understand him better. And also what contributed to the good relationship with peers were some characteristics of other children. Some children mentioned that it helps them that the peers, that their friends are introverts or that friends are calm children. And also some of the child's abilities contributed to better relationships. This is not something new. This is also something that was found in other studies. So I will just go quickly because we are our time is okay. Then what other thing that emerged is a lack of awareness on differences by teachers, and also lack of autism education, and they really don't know the ways in which autism can be expressed and the processes and the ways of thinking and learning of children with autism. There is a mother that said teachers don't understand what discrimination and ableism are. They don't understand the term invisible disability, and they have no social sensitivity outside of usual limits. And one child said, and this is just one quote of many, they always think I do things on purpose. It would be better if they would give me a chance to explain what I think or what I want or what happened. So there is no understanding of the way of autistic people, how they think, how they process information, and how they learn. Also, what was recognized by many parents is the lack of resources for teachers. There are incomplete and uneducated school teams in many schools. We have members of school teams that are professionals that are that didn't have any education on autism during their studies. And if there is an education and rehabilitation professional that has knowledge and has and knows how to support a child, then often teachers don't use that support. Also, what parents said, that they recognize that teachers can't make independent decisions, that they can't make changes, for example, in physical structures of the classroom, and that there are a lot of barriers to their actions also. What was recognized also that some teachers lack teaching strategies, that they are not making any accommodations. So one child says, even if I ask, they tell me that I should have listened. I was listening, but they were speaking too quickly and unintelligibly to me. And then one other child said, they ask me a question, and unless I start answering immediately, they think I don't know the answer and they start talking. So other things, what was recognized is that education is based on individual teacher efforts and personal capacities, and that a lot of teachers are able to support pupils, but also there are also a lot of teachers that can't do that, and that they use bad teaching strategies. So these were some of the strategies that good teachers were using, and also it was said that good teachers are those that have made a human contact with the child, and those a child trusts and is not afraid of them. So previous studies also confirmed that regarding teachers, that there is a lack of support from teachers, that pupils felt less accepted and understood by teachers, but also that teachers are crucial, and with their support and approach, they can feel children less stigmatized and more supported. So I feel okay, I just want to say that I really feel grateful and privileged to be able to hear those perspectives and hear autistic children and their parents, and I feel responsibility to act. So we wanted you to hear some of their messages, and we wanted to ask Zrinka and Magdalena to give their voices to the two children.
Magdalena, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so these are autistic children's perspectives and messages for their peers.
They should treat them like all other peers and not judge them for being different from them or their friends. Definitely not tease them. Be more empathetic and more understanding. Be good kids and not mean ones who tease those that are different. Help if they see that I'm lost or if they see that I need it. They should be calm, not chaotic.
Okay, and these are their messages for their teachers.
They should calm the classroom down. It's chaos in class all the time. The school is in chaos all the time, and it's hard to pay attention both during class and during breaks. When we are learning something new, it is great if they can also show what they are talking about, pictures or presentation, explaining things well and without unnecessary information. When taking written tests, if there is a question I don't understand, that I can ask for clarification, and for oral tests that I get more time to answer. It would be great if teachers could teach every child something at a child's own rhythm of learning, because not every child can learn, read, write, etc. at the same time and speed as everyone else. They should adapt to autistic kids, treat them differently than other kids, have more understanding. We are not all the same, so they should not treat everyone the same. They could explain the material in more detail or in a visual way, or if I can try something myself. Trying to do something myself would be the best. I can learn the best when I can see and try the thing they are explaining. I know they can't bring a plane or a bear to school, but they could show a lot of things.
Thank you. I think we would stop here because we only have 1 more minute. I will skip through this act. I'm sorry. We have 2 questions, which I mentioned on Discord channel that we would like to discuss. How to cater to the informed human rights-centered needs of autistic pupils in the immediate future, solutions in the next 2 or 3 years. And the second one,
And what our question is, are classes for neurodivergent pupils, for those children who need different support, the only immediate viable solution within the existing educational and legal framework? We would really like to hear your thoughts about that, because we are trying and we are discussing that issue a very long time. And if you could answer on Discord, and it would be great to hear your opinions and experiences. We are sorry, and this is also very important to thank everyone that were
you can
involved.
see
Yes.
on the screen. Thank you.
Thank you.